Hi, good morning. Apologies for the delay. My name is Marco Salinas. I'm really excited to be here again with you, talking more about Hubble and how can you take your design all the way to 8 stars. We experienced a few technical issues, so apologies for the delay. Again, really happy to be here. Just a little bit of housekeeping. This webinar is eligible for 1 Green Star Sustainability Development Point. So the only thing that you need to do is just to perhaps just leave a message, try to interact with us. In the case you have any question, please feel free just to let us know. More than happy to resolve those doubts or questions during the presentation or at the end of the presentation. So please, we would love to hear from you. So please just say hi. More than happy to interact with you. Today we got Pia Daniels. Let's say hi to Pia. Hi Pia, how are you?
Good, thanks, Marco. How are you?
Good, thank you. Well, thank you for joining again. Pia Daniels, she's an expert in energy efficiency. So in the case you have any question, perhaps this is the right opportunity to send it through. Again, more than happy to interact with you. Pia will be helping us on running a demo on how actually, like on real and in action, take a design that perhaps is underperforming all the way to 8 stars. So thank you very much, Pia, for doing that. And perhaps just before jumping into the demo, which, by the way, at the end of that demo, we will be showing or perhaps giving you a sneak peek on double stories as well. We recently added double stories into Hubble, so that's something that's already working, and it will be released next week. However, we will give you a sneak peek and let you experience, even before it's being released, how actually that is going to work, and that is something that I will be doing. And just before jumping into perhaps just the actual demo, I would like to perhaps just start really quick with a little bit of context on why are we doing this. And the main reason we're doing this, and I will try to move to the second slide on why are we doing this. First of all, with the use of Hubble, we are able to improve that customer experience. Talking with your clients from the beginning about energy efficiency and how can we add value, that's something critical that currently is not happening in the market. In the same way, the process isn't efficient as we would like. Designers, estimators, they assume that the design will be already compliant or will be fitting into compliance. However, they are not 100% sure, or they don't know actually how to tweak a little bit the design in order to improve that energy, that overall experience. And at the end of the day, the compliance actually keeps changing every 3 years or so. It changes, and it's really difficult to be just on top of all the regulation from the BCA. So with the use of a tool like Hubble actually helps you just always, it helps you in such a way that you don't need to be an expert in energy efficiency, but on the contrary, you leverage perhaps novel technologies such as artificial intelligence to do the hard work for you. Something perhaps important to mention is that we're not trying to replace the existing tools. So perhaps Hubble at its current stage basically targets the pre-design or the design concept phase, where all those hard decisions are taken around the materials and the layouts. After that, you will have to go to the normal or as usual compliance process, and that will be with the tools that are already in place. So we're not trying to compete with that. And without further ado, I will perhaps just let Pia I know that perhaps there are some technical difficulties, Pia, so I will try to perhaps try to fix during you are doing the demo, but please feel free just to continue. So back to you. And
okay, so we need to share my screen, which I'm hoping everyone can see at the moment. So today we're working through a house that I've already run through Hubble. This house came in at approximately 5.26 stars, which is below the average performance of a house across Australia. So you can see my screen now. This is showing the preloaded data that I did for this house, which is based in South Australia. So with this house, we'd be normally aiming for compliance of 6 stars, and with this one, we're aiming for 8 stars for the performance of this building. So we're just going to run through some of the key factors about the overall design that can affect the performance of it, and things that you can consider when you're designing and specifying of what would help you achieve those outcomes. So this house is based in the Adelaide foothills. This house is being designed to 8 stars, so we're looking at using high performance materials to achieve that rating, but also trying to achieve a high performance with the overall layout of the design to start with. So I'm actually going to skip past the materials just to begin with and go to the design of the building. So this is where we're looking at the overall layout of, or the size of the building. So one thing when we're considering the design of a building is the overall sort of window area to the floor area and the wall area of the building. Windows, unless they're really high performing windows, so we're talking triple glazed high performance windows, windows are sort of considered holes in the walls. So single glazed windows holes in the walls, and they, I think we've got some technical issues here. Marco, will you flip back to my screen for me, please? So windows are little holes in the walls, and the overall window to floor area also determines how, and wall area also determines how a building will perform. So if you have significant window area, like we're talking just walls of glass, the insulative properties of the building fabric can't outweigh the holes in the walls, which are the windows themselves. So we have to consider when we're designing how big our windows are and the placement of those windows. So one key thing to consider is when designing a house is, where are those views? Where should you put those windows? And are those windows just bringing in, or just a big wall? Are they just a big hole, or are they optimizing and framing out the view, if there is a view? And are they bringing in the right amount of natural light based on the orientation and overshadowing of any other neighbouring buildings? So if you're framing a window that's looking at a fence, one would consider that we might need to consider the size of that window, and if there's another option, particularly if it's a significantly large window, and could that be reduced? So
sorry, Pia, I just realized that actually we are back on track. Now the stream actually is working. Again, apologies to everyone for the technical difficulties, but I can confirm. So if that's right, Pia, I know that perhaps we are already perhaps 12 minutes into the webinar, but given that we didn't start it properly, are you okay if we start perhaps all the way from the top?
So we haven't been presenting to anyone?
No until now. All right. Yeah. So again, apologies for the for the technical difficulties. My name is Marcos Salinas. I'm really happy and excited to be here with you presenting how can you take your design all the way to 8 stars. Today we have with you Pia Daniels. Hi Pia, how are you?
Good, thanks, Marco. How are you?
Good. This is the second time we go over this, but that's all right. Obviously, we're live, so this type of technical difficulties usually happens now and then. Just a little bit of housekeeping. This webinar is eligible for 1 Green Star Sustainability Development Point. So the only thing that you need to do is just to interact with us, say hi. We would love to hear from you and see what's your interest in Hubble. Next week, we will have our first official release. So we're excited about that. And at the end of this webinar, we will have a sneak peek on how can you actually use Hubble for those stories. A little bit of context. Pia is saying that we're still having a little bit of technical difficulties. Is that right, Pia?
Yeah, I still can't see the stream. Sorry.
Let me just double check this. We'll take just one extra second. All right, so again, perhaps we will start from the top here. Are you ready?
Yes. Tentatively watching that screen load.
Hi, my name is Marcos Salinas. Apologies for the technical difficulties that we have been experiencing. We're finally live. We're really excited to be here showing you how can you use Hubble to take your designs from 6, 7 stars all the way to 8 stars with the use of Hubble. Today we got with us Pia Daniels. Good morning, Pia. How are you?
Good, thanks, Marco. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Pia is an expert in energy efficiency. So in the case you have any question, please feel free just to send it through. Pia will be demoing and showing us actually how to add more value to those designs. So I really appreciate Pia. And again, thank you for your patience with the technical difficulties. Just a little bit of housekeeping, just before we jump into the technical details. This webinar is eligible for 1 Green Star Sustainability Development Point. The only thing that you need to do is just interact with us. We would love to hear from you, where you're coming from, what are your interests in Hubble, and how can we help you. So the only thing that you need to do is say hi, and perhaps just contact our marketing team just to give you that certificate of attendance in the case it's required. Thank you for the marketing team for promoting our webinars as well. They have been doing an excellent job, so really happy with to see the entire traction that they are obtaining. Let me just, before jumping into the demo, before I forget, at the end of this webinar, we will have a sneak peek on the next release of Hubble. That will include double stories, and we will show you really quick on how actually that is going to look like. Next week officially starts the release of Hubble. So in the case you haven't joined the waiting list, please just feel free to go to Hubble.sh and fill the form, and we will be contacting you. Alrighty, so why are we doing this? Well, we conducted a user research, and we found that the entire process, or the construction process for residential, well, we found a few gaps in the process, and mostly they are related on how this information is presented back to the future homeowner, to the client. Usually there is no conversation around the energy efficiency, or it's really difficult to have that conversation, because energy efficiency, even among experts, is something quite difficult to understand without using the correct tools. So having those discussions about why to upgrade, or how to make tangible the energy rating, they are not happening. Usually, clients, the information that they get is that it will be sustainable, it will be energy efficiency, but they don't know at what extent. And usually they say just 6 stars, but there is no actually meaning behind those 6 stars, or what actually means in terms of level of comfort, or what actually means in energy bill savings, or a high evaluation of a property. So the idea behind Hubble is that people can start having these discussions really quick, without having to be that expert. At the end of the day, by knowing the energy efficiency, we also discover that the process will be more efficient, and we will be saving time to estimators and drafters, project managers, given that the design will be already fitting into perhaps a compliance, or will be really close to fit that compliance. But again, perhaps that customer experience on trying to make a difference between different services is where we find that there is a huge gap. Actually, you can start talking and discussing these issues with your clients. So let me just jump to demo, Pia. I will perhaps just give you again share with you your screen.
Thank you.
And I don't know if perhaps you can explain just a little bit of what you are trying to do with this, and then a really quick just run through Hubble.
No problem. Okay, so one of the key things with Hubble that we've been looking to do is to try and we want the energy efficiency side of things to be considered at the design concept phase rather than at building compliance phase, which is where it is now. So generally speaking, often energy efficiency is not considered until going through council for building approval, and we need that energy assessment report at that point in time. And often by that stage, it's a bit late to make alterations to the design or the specifications. So that's where Hubble comes in. With the demonstration I'm going through today, we've got a house that we want to achieve 8 stars. So this is where we can take a look at the design before it's decided on, and the specification before it's decided on, to see if we can get the house to achieve the 8 stars that we're aiming for. Now, what I've done is I've started off with a house that I've already loaded into the system. As we can see up here, the house is currently achieving just under 5.3 stars, which is 5.3 stars is the average performance of a house across Australia based on recent CSIRO reports. So in comparison, this house is sort of sitting below that average, and it's not achieving the minimum requirement, which is 6 stars. So we need to get this house up to 6 stars, and we also need to get this house to 8 stars, which is what we're after. So over in this main pane is where we're looking at the data that we're inputting into Hubble to change the performance of this building. So this building is currently located in South Australia. It's located in the foothills, and that data is not going to change about the house. Where the building is located is where it's located. Unless, of course, you've got a standard house design, then you would look at changing the location but keeping the materials and design the same. But that's not the case today. So we've got materials, design and windows that we can alter about a building. What I'm going to start with is the design. One of the key things to consider when designing the building before you even get to specifications is the overall window area to the floor area and wall area of the building. When we're looking at the energy efficiency of buildings and the performance of buildings based on the star rating, we're looking at the overall amount of heat flow in and out of the building, and that's based on the surfaces. So solid material surfaces such as the floor and the walls are more insulative than the windows if they're single glazed. The only time that sort of starts to even out is when you're looking at sort of high performance triple glazed window systems that can have the same performance as walls, like insulated wall properties. So generally speaking, the majority of houses being designed at the moment within Australia are being designed with single glazed windows. So those single glazed windows are overall considered holes in the walls within the building fabric. So that the ratio of windows to wall area and floor area then becomes quite significant. So what we want to consider is, are we designing a building that is proportionally going to give us the outcome that we're after? So looking at this one, currently we've got window areas, got quite significant north and east facing window areas, smaller south and west, and the overall floor area, which is not going to change in the overall wall area. Now the wall area can alter depending on height and things like that, but just to sort of show the performance of the impact of that, I'm just going to I've reduced this wall area and I'm just going to take it back up to what it was actually performing at originally. What the actual measurement is, and you can see that overall wall area has increased from overall star rating has increased up to 5.8 stars. So that's where we can see the ratio of window to area of the building having a significant impact on the performance of the building. So when designing a building, we want to consider things like what is the purpose of the window? Is it letting in natural light? So proportionally, how big does it need to be to achieve that outcome? And what is being seen through that window? I mean, if you've got a really large, floor to ceiling window looking at a fence, a neighbouring fence, are you really getting value out of that window for essentially putting a hole in the wall? So those are some of the things that we need to consider when we're designing a house. And Hubble can help you do that by looking at the overall wall area, floor area, and the window area of the building. So I'm actually going to start with the window area, looking at the proportional areas that I've got. And one I'm going to pull down is the eastern facade. So southern windows bring in a lot of natural light, if you can include them. North-facing windows are the ideal orientation, particularly if they're in a living area. If they're correctly shaded, they'll bring in the right amount of winter sun while blocking out overheating of the summer sun that's coming into the building. So the idea is to be having large north-facing windows to your living areas, so those rooms can be passively heated, and then minimising east and west orientations, because east only gets the hot summer sun rising in the summer and west only gets the hot summer sun setting in the afternoon. So we're not really getting, you might be getting natural light from those windows, but you want to try and minimize those orientations as well. So if we're looking at the east windows, and we start bringing that performance down, you can see that hasn't gone up as high as we would like, but that is there we go. And with the shading applied, we can see that performance of that building has come up substantially. So with designing windows, it is a bit of a combination of factors and how they impact on the performance of a building. So it does take a bit of fiddling around with those parameters, looking at shading, looking at size of windows, looking at the overall layout of the building to try and optimize. And that's where this tool is really helpful, because it's very simple to use. You can fiddle around with the parameters quite easily, and it gives you a prediction of how that building is going to perform. So currently we're looking at just under 7 stars, where we're trying to aim for that 8 stars. Now, before we start looking at the window specification, so I started with the windows because if you're doing it during the early stages of the design, it's not cost prohibitive to make that change to the building. Looking at double glazing and triple glazing performance values, those are things that are going to be costly. So what we're trying to do is improve the performance of the design without increasing the cost significantly. So if we go back to the materials, some quick wins that we can have are on things like insulation values. So insulation is quite cost efficient in terms of bringing up performance of the building. So if we look at changing, this building has a brick facade. So if we're looking at bringing up the level of performance of the insulation in the external walls, we can see that star rating started to jump up. Ceiling insulation, we're already installing it, so we can increase the value of what's being installed there to try and improve the performance of the building. So now we're up to 7.5 stars, or just under, sorry, 7.2 stars, just with simple changes to the insulation of the building. We could put in anti-glare, but it doesn't. In this case, it looks like it's not going to have much of influence on the rating. If in our next release of the software, we will have options here for added insulation at roof level, such as something like an anti-com blanket, and that can be quite effective in increasing the insulation that you have available to use, again, because it is quite a cost-effective solution for the building. So underfloor insulation sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't. There we go. So we've got an increase there of up to 7.3 stars. If we go to R2, that one's come down. So sometimes that happens. It's a bit of balancing out the parameters. And this is where you can optimize that design. So we've there's no suspended floor in this building because it's a single-story building, so we're not going to bother with that. But what we will do now is we'll go back to those windows. We do want these shaded, which we had before. And these windows here, these 6.5 U value and a 0.75 solar heat gain coefficient are the values for a single glazed window. If we start bringing these down, the U value down, oops, gone a little bit far, but we can see that's jumped up quite substantially. And we'll bring the solar heat gain coefficient down, get rating, just make sure it's giving us the right performance. And we've actually managed to achieve almost 9 stars. So that's come out higher than we were actually expecting. So there's that's how the tool can be used to maximize the outcome that you're needing at the design concept phase rather than at building rules consent phase, which by then it's often too late. So, I mean, we know that the cost of the high performance glazing can be a bit prohibitive, but it can be factored into the build cost if it's done at the design phase rather than later on down the road. So they're just some things that can help us achieve that outcome.
That's amazing, Pia. Thank you for that. Just to perhaps just wrap it up. So what's the main thing that perhaps you would recommend to increase or yes, to increase perhaps the thermal performance of a building?
Definitely, if you're just looking at materials, insulation is always a quick win, as I said. Just bump up your insulation to what will fit in the air spaces that you have available. You can't compress insulation, otherwise it becomes, it doesn't work anymore. So it needs to fit as a full bat. And then the other one is, if you're trying to keep it cost effective, is looking at that window area versus the floor area and wall area without looking at double glazing. So that's probably one of the key things to consider while you're designing, is if that ratio, which should be ideal ratio for, I think, single glazing is sort of under the 25% ratio, or 20% ratio, that can mean you can achieve a high performance building with low performance windows without having to spend an exorbitant amount on high performance glass. High performance glass is always a benefit if you can afford it, but not everyone can afford it. So that's something that, if it's designed well at the beginning, that's something that can be managed for the client and the designer and the builder.
And at the end, we were able to get almost 9 stars, isn't it? With
yes.
design.
Yes. So I did run this earlier, and I think this is a bit of a combination thing. Previously, I didn't put in floor insulation, whereas this time I've put in floor insulation. So that's where balancing out those things. In this one, the floor insulation has made a significant change to the building, so we couldn't get away with lower performance glazing rather than using high performance glazing, as was expected previously. But again, it just depends on site location and all those types of things as to what is physically possible. Not all sites can allow for floor insulation, so that's something that would need to be considered as well.
Thank you, Pierre. Just being a little bit conscious about our time, given that please, in the case you have any you're watching and you have any question, please don't hesitate to say hi or to send it through. You can also reach us at info@suho.com.au for any other question that you might have. Also, feel free to join our waiting list on the website as well, in the case you would like to hear more about Hubble or any tentative rollout feature. And just to finalize, well, with this one, Pia, I would be saying goodbye to you. Thank you for running the demo. Actually, that was amazing, just to see how we can take one design all the way from 5 to 9, right? Just tweaking the design and the materials, and immediately looking at the benefits that can bring. So thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you.
And just as promised, just before finalizing this stream, the live, I will perhaps just give you a sneak peek on how the double stories actually will work on the next release, which will happen next week. So just bear with me, and I will be sharing this one. So it's quite similar to the previous version of Hubble. Perhaps the only difference that we will have at the beginning of the form, you will have to select the type of construction that you are targeting. In this case, we will have a single story and double story. And I'm quite excited to actually say that we are looking into different type of constructions as well. I'm still adding perhaps a question mark, but we will reveal this in a few weeks' time. And with the double stories, actually it's quite simple as well. You will have to go to the entire form as Pierre did at the beginning. Perhaps the only difference is that you will have to fill the second story as well for the upper level. So just by selecting this one, you will have to go, you're now in the second floor, and you will have to select the different materials, and at the end you will be able to select the to get this tire rating. So with that, this will be released next week, by the way. So again, please contact us in the case you have any more questions or interest about Hubble. More than happy to run you through perhaps one-on-one type of demo where actually we can talk more about your designs, what you're trying to achieve, and how Hubble can help. Well, with this, we got Mina. Thanks to this that we got from Adelaide. Thank you, Mina, for saying hi. Please join our waiting list. More than happy to see you there and continue this conversation. And we'd like to hear more about your designs and what we will have to offer. Is there any question from the audience that you would like me to answer? Well, if that is the case, then with this, we will finalize our webinar. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and looking forward for the next one. The next webinar will be the overview of Hubble version 1.0, where we will include a new interface, and we will have a few surprises. So please stay tuned in, and see you next time.